Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cinema Recall podcast. I am the Vern. My special guest here is the director of Smile As You Kill, Michael Sarrow, and here is our theme song for our podcast show listeners. This podcast may contain adult language, adult situations, spoilers, and some brief nudity, so parental guidance is suggested.
We have such sights to show you.
After about 5 minutes of this movie, you're gonna wish you had 10 beers.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
So, what would you little maniacs like to do first?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Oh, well. La-di-da, la-di-da, la-la, yeah.
Welcome back to the Cinema Recall podcast. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Cinema Recall podcast. I am the Vern. Thank you for joining us for this very special bonus episode. I am here today with the writer and director of a very cool movie that you can watch now on Tubi. It is Smile As You Kill. We are here with its creator, Michael Sarrow. Hello, Michael. Welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for joining me and inviting me onto the podcast. I loved it. I love that. Thank you so much for your review as well, your positive review, and inviting me on. I mean, supporting indie film. We were just chatting a little bit before this and talking about how important it is to support indie film as Sean Baker just picks up his Best Picture Oscar.
Yeah, so for our listeners, this is going to be released probably sometime in late March, and we're recording this the day or so after the Oscars, and very cool thing to see a Nora win for Best Picture. And not only Best Picture, Best Editing, Best Original Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Actress. Because I remember when Sean Baker was making movies on cell phones. He did that with Tangerine.
Yeah, he made Tangerine on, I think, 3 different cell phones, as well as slapped some lens adapters on there and made it look a little bit more cinematic. But definitely was shooting on phones, had shot micro-budget films, really small films like the ones in prior to Tangerine and prior to Starlet even. So
Takeout and I think The Prince of Broadway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Were the other ones that he did there. And I can imagine, too, as an indie filmmaker and a micro-budget filmmaker, this has got to be like a huge sort of step to have the Academy members, pick this.
Yeah, it's great. As we were talking about Sean Baker's films, starting out as a micro-budget, we're talking about Smile As You Kill, and Smile As You Kill it is definitely a micro-budget film. We took it around to the regional festival circuit, had it on, rental and purchased TVOD, transactional VOD, and now it's available on Tubi, Amazon to watch for free with ads, and Fandango at home. And of course, we're talking micro budget film. For a film of this size, that's where most people are going to see it because no one involved is famous, and now it's an opportunity to take a chance on something where they don't have to put down $5 to $10 to actually take a chance.
And I definitely want to get into your feature, Michael, because what made your feature great, especially for first-time directors, is to do a movie kind of like set in one place. And I'm just kind of curious too. Let's just start this off here, Michael. Who are your influences that you would say when you're making a feature?
The film, the film itself for Smile As You Kill. I always, my North Star as a filmmaker is Ingmar Bergman, which is completely not what the film, it is in some ways, but this film is a genre film. It's a crime film. It is a crime thriller. It has dark comedy. So there's a little bit of that. But when you're looking at a chamber film, as you said, mostly one location, you kind of have to go to the character psychology and the willingness to dive deep into your themes. I've always said that our film isn't vast. There's limited characters, limited locations. So because it's not vast, it can go deep. And because it's not wide, it's deep. So I hope, that'll be up to your listeners. But Bergman, of course, is when you're looking at chamber films, but of course, there's others you mentioned in your review. Actually, Death and the Maiden. Mm-hmm. You look at like Roman Polanski's Carnage. Some of the
great one. Yeah.
yeah. So there's so many good ones on the micro budget scene. There's films like Coherence. So
Yeah.
there's I tried to be aware of all of those. This film is mostly one location, and you want to be aware of everything from Bergman's The Silence to Carnage to Death and the Maiden, all of these chamber films. An interesting influence on this film was Collateral, Michael Mann's Collateral.
Oh, with Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise.
With Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise. Now,
Yeah.
Of course, there's action, and they're all around Los Angeles, and at parts they're running, and there's action and bigger scenes. But for a lot of the film, it is two characters trapped in a taxi.
Hey, there's action in this movie too. All right?
There is. I don't want to say it's a boring film. I mean, for people who like their genre thrills and twists and turns, it's not strictly a psychological chamber drama, but it has elements of that in it.
And you have, two really good actors in this feature, and I definitely want to get into them and about how you casted them. But just for really quickly, for those listeners that are unfamiliar with Smile as You Kill,
which is most of them.
Okay.
If not all.
I'm hoping that this will expose them more to it, though. Can you just give them a little, synopsis, a small little synopsis of what this movie's about?
Yeah, the film is about a sick and desperate man who kidnaps a hotshot advertising director, and he forces him at gunpoint to create a crowdfunding campaign for his medical treatment. And he says, look, if we don't raise the money, I'm going to die. So if we don't raise the money, you're going to die too. And it has that slightly absurdist, it's obviously not the most well thought out plan, but it's the only plan he's got. And it's slightly heightened, and there's crime thriller, obviously, with the home invasion aspect, with the obviously the ad director doesn't want to be there. But on the other hand, there is dark comedy because they have to collaborate and work on the ad together to raise the money, because their lives are together and tied to the fate of this crowdfunding. Some of the humor comes when they're arguing over what to put on the ad, because they're very different characters who are in direct conflict. On the other hand, there's a lot of humor because they're very different characters and they have to argue and collaborate on this one project.
100%. Now, I'm curious, Michael, did you base this off of any news articles or things going on in life? Because it felt to me that this was sort of kind of a satire or taking a message against the health industry and how much health insurance is costing too much. And I thought you were kind of poking fun at the health industry and whatnot. And also maybe the whole crowdfunding fame as well too. I don't know. Were you trying to was this based on anything at all, or?
Well, it's not based on a specific story, although I will touch on that in a second. But yes, It's completely based on, unfortunately, the real stories it's based on are what we've all experienced and probably every one of your listeners has experienced, which is for many Americans, especially the tragedy of our healthcare system is that people are resorting to begging strangers online for money. And that's not a sustainable system. And what this film does is it heightens the desperation and puts these two characters in conflict because they have to be put up against everyone else that is begging for money. And that's basically what advertising is, right? How do you get someone to buy your product instead of other people's? So it's the heightened economic system that we're in. As far as the home invasion, crime, kidnapping aspect, no, there was an early version of the script that was strictly drama and it wasn't working. And in order to add stakes and add that really heightened feeling of this film and add tension to a story that is mostly two people, I added the home invasion, and then I wrote it, we shot it, we played festivals, and then coincidentally 1 month before our film came out on video on demand, there was the shooting of the United Healthcare CEO. And that was purely coincidental, 1 month before. And
did that stop you to have the film be released at all, or to did that stop any festival runs or it being released anywhere because of that?
No, we had our release date announced.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. We had our release date set, but we didn't have our release date announced when that incident happened.
Okay.
And we discussed it. And this film, it's different, but it's a crime thriller and about healthcare, and so was that incident. So we discussed it, but the film is topical, and I think the film captures. Well, it's not about a guy who kills a healthcare CEO. It certainly captures the zeitgeist and the desperation that people are going through, and that is a very real desperation. So it is based on that real desperation.
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. Like I know I've had friends of mine who lost their homes in the LA fires, and they're even using the whole like crowdfunding thing because their insurance has lab their insurance doesn't cover certain things too. So the fact that your lead character here, played by Ray Goyos,
Yeah,
he's
Rico
going.
Allende is the character name.
Yes, yeah, the actual name, yep, Rico character name after Ray Goyas. What
Yeah.
he's going through with this is, I'm sure, what a lot of people are kind of going through because they're good people and their insurance is just not going to cover this particular thing, so they have to use other means. And he's wants to do the crowdfunding. He did a lot of research, and he finds out Terry, played by Michael Tay, and he goes there. He's just really just desperate. He hears a guy with a desperate situation, and I love that dynamics between the two. And I love the fact very much that Terry seems to be the type of guy that says he does good. He seems to be the type of guy that would give to some charities, but he really wants nothing to do with like helping people. And he seems to only want to help the people that will help him the most. The people that want to pay him the most money is what he wants to go for there. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and the only reason he's helping out Rico is because he's afraid of his life. He does not really care if this person lives or dies or not, at least in the first part. Or it just, and I love how like you go from one character to the next because as I'm watching this film, I'm on the side of like Terry at first because I'm like, yeah, you're breaking this guy's home with a gun and you're gonna kill him. Yeah, I would not care if you lived or die or what your disease is. All right, you're making me feel very uncomfortable. And
Of
then
course.
tables turn, and suddenly, hey, I'm on Rico's side, and yeah, like F this guy over here that's trying to stop me from living. All he wants to do is just like live, and then your mind changes back and forth. And both actors in this movie are actually do a really good job. And I want to get into like the casting process, but before I do that, Michael, let's talk a little bit about did you raise funds before you casted the movie? Like walk me through this. You finished the script, and
Absolutely.
like who did you give the script to?
So
Or
this will actually answer both of your questions in a
okay,
way,
all right.
or it'll answer. So the genesis of the script was I know this actor Ray Goyos, and he's been a friend of mine for a really long time. He gets cast in a lot of commercials,
Sure.
and he gets a lot. That's how they pay their bills. Most actors,
Hmm.
and he just has such a great intensity to him when he gets like meaty feature script roles. But he's also very comedic in commercials, both in Latin American markets, like Spanish speaking markets, and North American English speaking markets. So I sat him down and I said, "Look, I have an idea for a script. We may not we may not raise any money. If I wrote it for you as the lead, would you be interested, even if we had to shoot it on my phone?" And he said, "Yeah," for some reason. So I wrote the script, went through some revisions, sent it to him. And then after that, I reached out to Michael Tay, who plays the advertising director, and I knew he'd be good at it. And I said, "Look, I have this script. I think I've worked with him on a short film, actually." And I said, "Look, I think you'd be great in this film. And we may not be able to shoot it for much." And he said, "Actually, I might know some people." And through some people from connections of his and their connections, and we got passed down the line, and we were able to raise Just under 100,000, and that got us through festival. I mean, that took us. That was not just shooting. That was through post production, festival submissions, and all of that, and through distribution. And we raised a couple thousand to just cover things like insurance. But yeah, true micro budget. I mean,
Sure. Yeah, it's incredible. How long did it take you to shoot this film?
So we filmed in 12 and a half days.
Really?
We had 10 days in the main location. Yeah.
Wow.
We had 10 days. So 12, for listeners who aren't aware, that is not a lot for a feature film. Even your ultra low budgets, I mean, you're talking about probably 18-day shoots are normal. For many of the low budget stuff that plays at Sundance, you're looking at like much more or more than that, significantly. Yeah. So we were 12 and a half, but we had mostly two characters, mostly one location.
So how many hours would you say what was like the most amount of hours you shot in a day?
We made our days. We had an amazing AD, Tiffany, who, shout out to Tiffany on the podcast.
Sure.
And yeah, we were able to make our days. We went in, I rehearsed with the actors the entire script beforehand over multiple sessions. So we had a good idea of what we were going in for. I had floor plans of the location. We were going in doing 10 to 12 hour days, but we were out of there on time, and we made our days. It was fairly smooth sailing.
Very nice. Do you storyboard anything? I'm not saying you have to like draw anything, but do you like plan your shots out for your actors each day that they're there? Or
not for the actors, but for the cinematographer. Yeah, I mean, I had some storyboards. I had a complete shot list. There were some specific frames that I knew I wanted to capture, but mostly it's the shot list, and then here's what I need, right, to make the movie and tell the story in the way. And there's specific frames that tell the story visually. I'm sure a lot of filmmakers probably listen to your podcast who are interested in indie film. So, I blocked and tried to shoot the actors in ways that would show their shifting power dynamics. You mentioned how a lot of people go back and forth between the characters in the film, like their allegiances and who they root for. And that was definitely intentional and something I heard from festival audiences, but also during the storyboarding process and blocking plans using floor plans, I tried to show the shifting power dynamics. I didn't want to just do, close up of me, close up of you, close up of me, close up of you. I wanted to have nice two shots that really told the story.
And that's a great thing too. And I love the fact, because I feel like a lot of other indie filmmakers will just do the whole handheld approach when it comes to like shooting scenes like that. And I'm glad that you don't use that. You it's in there somewhat there, but not a lot. And I love the fact that it's very stilted. It reminded me a lot of like watching like Yorgos Lanthimos in his earlier features too, how he just lets the frame just be as still as it is. And I love the fact that you give your actors spaces where we can actually see them perform. I mean, this almost felt like a stage play, and I love that very much, because too many films, they have to give a really close up to the actors, and you have to move to this other actor, and it's a lot of shift in camera movement. And it was just still. I'm like, good. I see these actors perform, and I can see them just doing everything that they do, and it's absolutely just wonderful to see and behold. And
I love Yorgos, so any comparison to that is a huge flattery. But absolutely, I mean, it's look. Some films are right to take the more handheld verite approach, but this definitely lets things breathe, and it is so much about these performances. Like, you want to see the characters playing off each other. You want to have the full performances and not just chop it up into an edit where it's just a bunch of close-ups. And it adds the visual dynamism that's necessary for a one location film. Because if it was just my close-up, your close-up, the whole movie, it's visually boring. So not only do we get to tell the story visually, we get the full expression of the performances in those shots.
Now, I'm curious, Michael, is this your first feature, or have you done another feature? You mentioned shorts, but I wasn't sure if this is your first feature or not.
So I did shoot. I took a huge swing on my first feature. It's a film called Living Room Coffin. It is an absurdist film about a woman who receives a coffin anonymously in the mail.
Okay.
And she has to go off on like an existential crisis odyssey to find out who sent it. And I wrote it entirely like a Samuel Beckett play, like 1960s theater of the absurd. Okay. So it was a huge swing. I still get emails to this day of people that connected with the film, which is very touching. But I would say for most people, it didn't work. And it's understandable because it was an enormous swing for my first feature. So I really wanted to dial things back. And the lead of that film, by the way, is Jennifer Prediger, who has a brief little appearance in this film, in Smile As You Kill.
Okay.
And yeah, so Smile As You Kill is my second film, second feature film. And that film was an ultra low budget, The Living Room Coffin, but it still had a bunch of characters and locations as she goes around and tries to find out who sent her this thing. So I really tried to dial it back for Smile As You Kill. It touches on some of my similar pet obsessions, like a character exploring their mortality. I mean, in a way, Smile As You Kill touches on that because he's a sick man and he will do anything to live, which is how he comes up with this home invasion plot. So the films are quite different, but touch on some similar themes.
I like that. I like when a director, goes just all out there and just wants to create something that he wants to create, he or she wants to create. I love that. That's absolutely just amazing to hear. I now, is that one available? Can I watch that one anywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love for you to check it out. It is still out there streaming. I mean, it's on the most free to play, free ad supporting platforms. Like I think it's on Tubi. I think it's on Roku.
Okay.
It's very much, some people love it and some people are like, what is this guy thinking? Like this, because the dialogue is so highly stylized, right? Like it goes for that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Like Sartre's no exit, that kind of feel. And it's like, it doesn't sound like a normal movie.
Well, that's the thing too, Michael. I love it like when directors just go all out. I mean, if directors didn't go all out, we would not have Eraserhead.
Yes, of course.
People, yeah, and it's a great thing to see how people's careers have gone through. So I'm curious to watch something like that and then go from that to Smile As You Kill and then seeing your other features as your career goes on and on. Have you done the commercial route? Because you mentioned before, like your actors have done like commercials. Have you shot for commercials or any other like things to pay the bills or whatnot?
I actually have. I do have a day job writing.
Okay.
I do content writing, so I come from more of the writing background. Actually,
Sure.
I come to directing from writing as sort of a way to tell the stories I want to tell visually. So I do. It's not artistic, but I do content writing for various businesses. And I have shot some corporate videos and these kind of things, but that is not my main source of income. When you're talking about like Brady Corbet was talking about how he didn't make anything on The Brutalist, for instance. He shot for large brands. I'm not getting those gigs, even if I wanted them. That they're not hiring someone who shot, Smile As You Kill, which it did well for itself as a micro budget, but it doesn't have, cars whizzing by or anything like these kind of shots that they want to see on your reel. That said, my first job in LA was working in a commercial production company. And I have liaised with people that are like this Terry Tanner character in my film. So I'm familiar with the world.
Okay. Well, very, very, very cool indeed. I love the fact that you're just kind of get into the thing. I know one thing that I'm trying to build up right now is I'm actually in the small talks with a theater to be their actual podcast person. And I want to try to like bring in more independent films and have this theater be like one of the main headquarters when movies come into Minnesota for premieres, and I want to be able to like have this theater be. I'm not going to say who it is yet, but I'm in the works right now to have this little independent theater to be bigger because they play a lot of older movies and they have like bands being played there, and I would love it if a filmmaker like yourself would bring like this cast and crew to our theater when it plays the festival rounds. But you got to come to the Parkway. I'm gonna have a big theater for this. It's gonna be great. We can do like a Q&A afterwards, and it'll be a lot of fun. So that's one thing that I'm trying to work on. And I've got the projectionist. He likes the idea, and one of the floor managers, and we're now just trying to talk to the guy who owns the theater to have it be, because that's one of my big things too, Michael, is trying to do what I can with this podcast and other things too to help support independent films. And
I love it. I appreciate it as an indie filmmaker, as a micro budget filmmaker. We've gotten some press, but not a lot. I mean, most of it is word of mouth and playing film festivals, as you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Going to theaters, and I've traveled. I came out of pocket to travel to film festivals and everything, and you just go and hope people spread the word of your film, and some people will connect with it, and that's really what it's about. And it sounds like you really care about the art and sharing it with people, and that's awesome. That's how the whole cinema community should work.
And I'm curious too, the film festivals that you go to, how many film festivals have you brought this to? And for people that don't know exactly how that works, I mean, how would they submit their films to a film festival if they had a film that's ready?
So, if you're on the larger films, many of them are submitted because they get waivers to submit to Sundance because they know someone, which is fine. That's just how it works. They get invites if it's a large festival like Cannes. Cannes will invite filmmakers, same with Sundance and South by Southwest. And we didn't get into those, top tier festivals. But as a micro budget filmmaker or ultra low budget filmmaker, you're looking at submitting through a website like filmfreeway.com.
Okay.
Where you upload your film and you basically blind submit, and you pay an entry fee. The screener is sent to the film festivals, and they're basically, look, it is not well paying on their end. So I understand they have screeners that usually volunteer. Some are paid, volunteer to screen. If you make it past, the first judging level, you're sent to the next one. And eventually they have to sift through all the films. And eventually they find how the 20 to 80 films they want to program. And that's how they make up their festival.
Well, I'm kind of curious, Michael, is it best for filmmakers to release stuff to a state sort of film festivals? Because we have like a couple film festivals here. We got the Twin Cities Film Fest, and we got the Minneapolis St. Paul International Film Festival. And both of those do well or whatnot. So if I'm a filmmaker out in Idaho, yes, I want to try to go to like, the big ones, but maybe start within your own state and see what kind of film industry is in your own state, and then go from other things there. I'm not sure if that's...
Well, okay. So I think there's, as a strategy, yes. If we always dream of the big ones. So it's like, you got to play the lottery to win the lottery, right? Yeah, even if there's only one spot for a film of our size with no famous people in some of these larger ones, like we would feel just personally disappointed if we didn't give it a shot.
Sure.
But yes, I do recommend in general putting out a strategy for your film. So there's horror focused festivals.
Yep.
And for independent films, so much of independent film is meeting people and networking, and you never know who you're going to work with. As I mentioned, I worked with an actor on a short, and I ended up working with him again on this. And not only that, he was instrumental in helping to raise the funds. So you never know who you're going to meet, who you're going to want to work with. So if you're a Minneapolis filmmaker, absolutely submit to the film festivals in Minneapolis. If I submitted to multiple ones in the Los Angeles larger LA County area,
Sure.
because these are ones that are so easy for me to attend.
Yeah.
And I don't have to pay for travel as much. Now, we did submit other places, and I went to Florida, I went to New York, I went to Texas, but I can't travel to every single one.
Sure.
As a low budget independent filmmaker, I can't afford it, right? Like, I mean, just being honest. So
that means, are you not coming to Minnesota now because you can't afford to travel to Minnesota?
I would come to
Okay.
Minnesota. Now, that
totally,
said,
if you can't, I totally understand. I'm sorry.
I would love to. We didn't get into any film festivals in Minnesota. I believe we submitted to St. Paul. I do believe we submitted.
I would not have nothing to do with that, but I would definitely talk to those
course.
people, and I would be like, what's going on here? Why were they not allowed?
So much of it is not. You can't take it personally as a filmmaker, because there's so many films that they get.
That's true.
And there's so many that get in for different reasons. A lot of state film festivals will favor local connections, and understandably, because those are the people more likely to show up and do the Q&A and have home-based connections there, so that they can get people to come to the screenings who will pay for tickets, and that's how the festivals sustain themselves. So when you hear a film didn't get in somewhere, it's so much taste based, and then even once you're past the taste, there's other considerations, like maybe they already had a crime thriller with two people in a room, maybe they already had a film that dealt with healthcare and they didn't want that topic to be hammered home. So there's so many different things for independent filmmakers. I definitely recommend, if you don't have unlimited funds to submit to every single film festival in the world, which most people do not, pick some of the big ones, take your shot. You'll regret it if you don't, even though most likely most of us do not get into those. Because, some of these have CAA representing the films going in some of the larger festivals. But find the ones that you can attend. Find the ones that are local or somewhat local that you can drive to. Find ones that fit in your category. We actually played this Canadian genre festival called Terror in the Bay, and Michael Tay won Best Actor there, and because they play thrillers. And I reached out to them and I said, look, I know you're mostly horror focused, but I think this might be good for you because you play thrillers. Would you be interested if we submitted? And I spoke to the people there, and they said, yeah, submit it. Sounds like a really cool film. And we got in. And that opens us up to a different audience, right? Because it is not constant blood and guts, our film. Like, it is a crime thriller. It's not like a horror thriller. And that gives us a new audience. It's Canada. It's a different region. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. We were playing a different festival at the same time. But it was a cool opportunity. So I definitely recommend filmmakers to, we actually won Best Narrative Feature at the Workers Unite Film Festival.
That's amazing.
And that is in New York, and it is a social economic issue based festival. And we won Best Feature there, and because of the healthcare angle, and it deals with people from different class backgrounds of this economically desperate person who's financially strapped and a more well-off advertising director. And this gave us a wide reach for our film because we were able to touch on, genre festivals who were like, look, this is just a cool thriller. And other festivals were like, oh, this is like a healthcare movie, right? Even though...
That is so cool. I love the fact that you are bringing this into different film festivals based on like the different genres that you can put your film into. A thriller movie put into a horror film festival. Because, there is a lot of good suspense and tension that happened throughout this movie when you're watching it. And then, the whole thing with the healthcare system, too, and people's economic classes. That would work great for that other film festival you mentioned. And that is just a brilliant thing to hear, Michael. In fact, a lot of directors are thinking that, well, my film can only be in one category. No, your film can be in multiple categories.
Absolutely.
Bring it to a drama festival, bring it to the horror festival. And I'm pretty sure if there was like sort of like a playwright film festivals, films based on plays or whatnot, it can go for this one too. There's so many films. I mean, this one wasn't based on a play, but it could have been a play, obviously. It could have been,
Yeah, that's something I've heard multiple times, which is like, from festival audiences. They're like, if this was a play, I would go see it live. You know?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But I think so many independent films may not find their audience. We've been fortunate to look. Our film has been fairly successful, but it's not like we didn't blow up to the Anora level, but we were able to find our audience, and that's what independent film is about. And so many filmmakers could go one layer deeper, especially on the low budget indies, where they're like, okay, I know my film is a drama, but what else could what other festivals could I submit to that might really resonate with this, right? What is it about? Who are the characters? Maybe your festival has, different demographic categories or these kind of things, right? Like there's so many, or what's it about? What's the topic that would really resonate with someone? So there's ways to get out there for sure.
100%. And the really cool thing too, Michael, is that each feature you make will lead to other things. So people that went and saw Smile As You Kill, they'll recognize that name and they'll be like, oh shoot, I recognize this name from making this movie. I'm going to be curious now what his next feature is going to be. And then the audience will seem to get bigger and bigger as
that's the hope,
career
at least.
goes on. Well, of course. And this is your only
if it shrinks, these things happen.
This is your only second feature. All right. I don't know what you have planned for next or anything like that. But I'll be very intrigued to see where your career goes from here, because you seem to have a good mindset on where you want to submit your screeners to. And I'm pretty sure you kind of wrote down who or what film festivals you attended, and you get in contact with those event directors, and and you network with the directors at these other places and all that stuff. And I'm sure that's what happens when you go to these film festivals. All the different types of people you meet. I've been to a few film festivals, and I love connecting with the filmmakers there, as well as the other film critics that I go to the things for. And yeah, it's just the whole network connections of things is really kind of a cool thing to hear. And I love it very much when a director just has their career just sort of starting out, and you kind of see how things go from there. And it's really kind of a cool thing. And the fact that your feature is a chamber piece, I know there's a lot of, we mentioned it before, with Roman Polanski doing Carnage and the Death and the Maiden, and I mentioned Hard Candy in my review.
Yeah, Hard Candy.
The movie Tape from Richard Linklater is one of my favorite movies ever, with Ethan Hawke and Robert Sean Leonard and Uma Thurman.
Hitchcock's Rope.
Hitchcock's Rope as well. So there is a market for these types of movies if they are told well, if they actually have interesting characters and great dialogue. It's not an easy thing to do, because you really have to keep our attentions there just by the use of dialogue alone. And it's a tricky thing. Not anyone can do it. And I think you did a remarkable job with this feature. I love the fact that you rehearse your actors beforehand is really cool. And it seems to me when I was watching this film that here's a guy that wants to take his time and make a feature good. And I love that very much about how you did this with the feature. Because the fact that you shot this in 11 days or 12 days is kind of mind blowing to me, because the way that you had to set each shot seems like it would take a while to do. So very cool that you're fast with everything. And yeah, love it.
Thank you so much. And the way, hopefully, as you started that with is hopefully every project does lead to the next one. I do have something that's a little larger that I would love to take on. And, it's sites like yours and podcasts like yours. I mentioned Site because of your review, obviously, but that share indie films that are really about it, and if people from your podcast or read your review and then watch the film, I would love if they leave a positive review on, Rotten Tomatoes or Letterboxd or IMDb, and share the film with others. And really, look, it's free to watch, so it's not much of an ask. But look, that's how people find out about indie films of this size. Is just being honest. It's no one's going to scroll through and see a famous actor or a famous name director, and how else can people find out? It's really word of mouth. It's people like you that support independent film, and fortunately, I think film is becoming more word of mouth with sites like Letterboxd and more film festivals and ease of distribution in some cases. But it really does come down to, it's a subjective art, and if people enjoy a film, I hope they'll check out Smile As You Kill and give it a shot. And if they enjoy it, I hope they'll share it.
And I imagine too, right now, when you look at the Academy Awards, a lot of the films that were up for Best Picture are independent films. I know these get brought up by, Neon and A24 and whatnot, and I imagine something like that will happen for you down the road, Michael. That a big studio will find your feature, pick it up more. But it's going to take some time too. You look at Sean Baker when he made Takeout.
It's a while ago.
That didn't, get picked up for
I'm not calling him old, but it was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but not until he started making the Florida Project and Tangerine. Then people were like, "Oh shoot, well we're gonna check out his other features he did before that." But he just kind of kept working, and that's the idea, because he always mentioned himself as being like an independent filmmaker, and just really wanted to work on doing that. And
he's such a great supporter of independent film.
Oh, very much so. And I can just imagine that's where things are going to go with you later on there.
Certainly, that's a path to aspire to, which is start low, make a little bit larger films each time, a little bit more success. Hopefully, I'm very proud of this film, but also I'm always learning and growing as a filmmaker, and hopefully each one leads to the next. And as long as I keep working on cool projects, hopefully people will join me.
I will make sure that in our show notes, I will post links to the website for Smile As You Kill. And that will give people ways to watch, where they can watch the film. When you mentioned before that it is on Tubi, and I gotta say Tubi is great.
Yes.
Tubi has been a big lover of independent films, and I have been able to watch so many other great movies on there. It's wonderful.
They have everything from Criterion movies to small micro budget indies. They've got, and everything in between. So it's a great service. The problem with independent filmmakers, though, is, as I mentioned, is when you're on a service like that with thousands of movies, how do people find Smile As You Kill, right? And that's where people like you are the saviors of independent film, because you find a film that you liked enough to chat about with me, and then people can find it. So that's really how it all comes together.
I thank you for reaching out to me to have me review your film, because I'll be honest with you, I do get screeners from I get screeners from movies that had bigger stars in there, and a lot of the time, a lot of them are not all that good because they don't seem to pay attention to where boom mics are, and things are kind of in the frame, and these are kind of shot sporadically, kind of bad. But you took a lot of care, and I can fully suspect bigger things for you. It's going to be a slow journey,
but
of
course.
It's going to be a very fun one as well. And I big thank you for being on our small little podcast here.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope if I can get this other project off the ground in a few years, I'll join you when that one comes out.
Well, yeah, I would love to I would actually come down just to shoot some EPK featurettes.
I will keep that in mind. I'd love to stay in touch, absolutely.
With your cast and crew, because I think that'd be kind of a cool thing to put. I mean, would you ever do a DVD release with audio commentary with your cast and crew?
If I'm we do have a manufacturer on demand DVD actually available on Amazon. It doesn't have any special features. If people really wanted to own it on physical media, they could search Smile As You Kill and find it. I would be fine if people were interested in hearing my in-depth thoughts. I've done some interviews at smaller outlets that if they really want to learn more about the film, search Smile As You Kill and you can find the articles. If people were interested in audio commentary and these kind of things, absolutely. For a film of our size, though, I just don't think that makes financial sense for our distributor to put the extra effort in, because you couldn't simply do what we're doing with our DVD, which is like someone orders it, they make it on demand and send it to you. Like, you would need to have something more prepared and pre-made when you're dealing with special features and these kind of things. And our film is just so small. If I'm just being honest, I don't think that there's enough people out there that would buy the DVD. But maybe on the next one, hopefully we'll get a 4K release on Blu-ray disc and the whole thing, But that's something to work towards, I guess.
Fair enough there. Well, again, Michael, thank you for being part of the show. To everyone else out there, thank you very much for listening to Cinema Recall. I know it's been a little while since we were back on here, so thank you for that. Thank you for all your support that you're giving us. If you're a Patreon member, you're hearing this episode way in advance. Actually, you're probably hearing this episode probably a day or two after the Oscars, so that's very cool. That Friday after the Oscars. So yay for being a Patreon member. If you'd like to support us, it's patreon.com/Cinema Recall Pod. And I appreciate you all very much out there for doing so. You are great. I love you. Check out all of our older episodes over on our website, cinemarecall.net. We have a YouTube channel where I'm uploading a lot of our older podcasts onto our YouTube channel because we're using like Spotify for creators, and a lot of times episodes on there don't stay on there that long. So we're trying to move all of our older episodes over onto our YouTube page, and I'm making different channels for things. We expect to have on more filmmakers like Michael Sarrow here in the future. If you go to our YouTube page, you'll see all of our interviews are there, and you'll be able to watch or listen to all of them over there on our YouTube page. Thank you all for watching or for listening, whatever you're doing to help support Cinema Recall Podcast. Greatly appreciate that. Love you all very much, and we'll be back very shortly. Bye-bye, everyone. And